Growing up, I was an aficionado of Nancy Drew and the Hardy Boys. They were the junior they were the junior version of Sherlock Holmes. And what I loved about it was they could get in any kind of a scenario and notice things that nobody else was noticing. Maybe you have someone in your life who is a super noticer, the one who, when you've lost something, can tell you exactly where you left it. Or in a book club, they're the ones that notice that one little word that takes us on a deep dive that explodes the meaning of the entire chapter. How grateful I am for those around me who are super noticers. So being a first-class noticer is a pretty important skill, whether you're a private investigator or a coach or a teacher or an artist or an entrepreneur, a photographer, a scientist, or even a parent or a friend. In fact, it's important and beneficial for all of us to be better at noticing things. Noticing is the ability to notice that which everyone else has overlooked. Noticing is finding that which has previously been invisible to everyone else. Think of comedians. They notice those absurdities in our life and bring them forward, and we laugh at them because they are so funny. We hadn't thought of it. Or the Warren Buffetts, who notice the undervalued companies and become these successful investors. Or the artist or the photographer who sees an object or a landscape from a very different angle in their lens. Or that entrepreneur who creates a company of taxis from private car ownership. So paying attention is a skill we can sharpen, learn, cultivate, and capitalize on just by doing something outside of the box for as little as 1 hour a week. Yeah. So today is all about stretching your creativity and expanding your awe and maybe even your comfort zone and helping us become exposed to that which in our current life we haven't noticed. So are you curious? Well, good, because when we get out of our status quo internal and external vision and try some invitations, we can start opening up the power behind noticing. Expanding your awareness is important. Doing something you are not used to doing expands your experience. And dialing into your ability to notice at a heightened level, that, my friends, gives you empowerment. So today I have some fun exercises for you to try to step into the adventurous art of noticing. Hello, hello, hello. You are listening to the No Brainers Empowering Possibilities show. These are dialogues of encouragement with fresh perspective, invitations to ahas, a little bit of science, and a dash of behavioral psychology, some usable, easy skills to try here and now, and a whole lot of creative fun. So if leveling up is on your radar, my friend, you are at the right show. I'm your host, Roseanne Marsh. I'm the author of the teen and the parent empowerment curriculum called Level Up. And you are listening to episode number 59, The Adventurous Art of Noticing. I had an interesting experience as I was biking with a large group of friends years ago in southern Utah. And there was an old pioneer trail that was cut out of the side of the mountain. This is actually where the pioneers brought their wagon wheels. In fact, there's some of the rocks where you can actually see a rut that was worn in the sandstone from so many different wagons going through it. So a friend and I thought, let's bike over there and go down the pass a little bit. So we got there, left our bikes at the top, and we started running down this road that you can still see that's cut into the mountains. And it was a beautiful sunny day. Oh my gosh, it was gorgeous. And there were sagebrush and desert flowers, and it was beautiful. And we got down just a little ways when all of a sudden the sky just went dark black and these clouds started rolling in. And in the distance, we could see lightning and thunder. We thought, okay, we got to head back to camp. And as we turned around, I held up my hand and I said, stop. Just stop a second. And he was like, what? I said, okay, I want you to look at the horizon. I don't want you to tell me what you notice. And he kind of laughed. He said, yeah, it's beautiful. Let's go. And I said, no, stop. I want you to observe and tell me what you notice. So he mentioned the cacti and the sagebrush and the different formations of rocks. And then he said, okay, are you satisfied? I said, okay, you just gave me the macro view. Now I want you to give me the micro view. So he turned around a little impatiently. He said, okay, well, let's see. There's lots of cow pies there that I didn't notice coming down before. And for those of you who don't know what cow pies are, that's the pile of soft manure left from a cow. But funny, we hadn't seen any cows on our entire biking trip. And then I said, wait, I want you to look at those cow pies and tell me if any of them are moving. And he looked back at me. He said, what the heck? I said, right. Those aren't cow pies. Those are rattlesnakes curled up on the rocks, sunning themselves. And I don't know if they just came out as soon as the sun went away. Well, needless to say, it was Indiana Jones' interesting ascent up and out of that pioneer trail. But I can tell you, for the rest of the trip, we were looking for and noticing cow pies. And in discussion, we thought, you know what? It's not like a bell went off and it was like, every rattlesnake come out right now that the sun's gone. No, they must have been there the entire time. But it was something that we had not noticed when we were descending down the road. What in our environment are we not noticing? And sometimes there are those precarious things like rattlesnakes, but sometimes there's just the beauty that we don't see. And that's because we're programmed with this fast-paced life and we don't stop and we don't notice. But what's the value in notice? Is there a power behind noticing? And is there an art to doing it? Well, noticing adds spark, creativity, inspiration, and joy to our everyday. Not to mention, it can open up doors if we notice the right things. I read a book called The Art of Noticing by Rob Walker. And I have to say, that just gave me a shakeup to once again want to get out of my comfort zone and do some things to awaken my curiosity and my wonder. And the suggestions offered by Rob Walker and other contributors give us ways to practice and increase the creativity in our life. So noticing can bring up inspiration and it can help train our brains to notice things we've never noticed before. So before we start, I really want to reinforce the situation that we're in this culture. You just drive down the freeway and we're barraged by billboards, at least in the area I'm in. And not to mention these phones, they've done surveys that we touch our phones about 150 times a day. We touch or pick up our phones about 150 times a day. We swipe and touch about 2,500 times. It can feel like everyone we know is just clamoring for our attention. So over the next decade, probably the most vital resource we're going to need to protect is our mindfulness and our mental space. If we have truly reached an attention epidemic, then the need to pause and pay attention has never been more important. And we are truly wired to be attracted to the shiny things. But our human capacity, we have that ability to focus our minds and put our attention to where we desire and where we want to go. We live in a culture of being hyper busy, accomplishing the checklist and getting things done. But what if we were able to dedicate 1 hour a week to cultivate the ability to notice? How much could that change the way we pursue life? Or how could that change the way we relate to people? How fun would that be? Curiosity and wonder is the foundation for inspiration, creativity, and progress. So from Rob Walker's book and other contributors, I'm issuing you some adventurous invitations to maybe try some things this week that will cultivate the adventurous art of noticing. So are you ready? I'm going to throw out, maybe 10 to 15 different ideas. And if you see if there's something you resonate with, and if there's something you're like, ooh, that feels too uncomfortable, lean into maybe that one, because maybe that's what you need to do to really do a jump start on your ability to notice. We're going to warm up with a scavenger hunt. Yeah, this is easy stuff. Sometimes starting to awaken the art of noticing or the power of noticing is just by doing the scavenger hunt. So maybe you're on a trip, or maybe you're leaving for a trip and you're in the airport. Call out beforehand something that you're searching for. So maybe it's the fire extinguishers that you're going to look at, Or maybe it's someone dressed in a certain color, or someone who has the same type of suitcase that you have. And maybe as you're traveling in a bus or taxis, you're noticing certain doors on certain buildings. When we ask our brain to focus, it engages that reticular activating system, and things that virtually go unnoticed, all of a sudden the brain is like, okay, we're focusing on this, and all of a sudden they start coming out. That's what all these exercises or these invitations are. We are engaging the brain in a way that we haven't used it before, or to look for something that we haven't looked for before. So creating that mental image in our mind is how we search for things. And that way the brain can selectively tell you what to pay attention to and what things that you can ignore. It's brilliant. And as a first-time tourist, it feels like we're drinking in everything in a new place. But when we've lived someplace for a while, we get what's called inattentional blindness, because we start taking for granted our surroundings. We don't even notice that which is right in front of us. Can any of you relate to that? Okay, next adventure. Find a window either in your office or in your home that you rarely look out, and then spend 10 minutes several days in a row and see if there's some things that when you're looking out the window that you could notice that you've never seen before. This next idea comes from McGraw. They have a company called Museum Act, and they're a company that takes people on tours in museums that don't like museums. And to help them like it, they play a game with them. And it's called Buy, Burn, or Steal. So they're looking at different pieces in the art portion of the gallery. And they decide, is this amazing enough that they would buy it? Or do they think it's horrible and they want to burn it? Or is it so incredible, they'd love to steal it? So that would be kind of fun. You could apply that to so many different things to get people noticing things and then applying a feeling or an opinion about something. Pretty fun, huh? This next idea comes from Paula Olivares, who has a company called Deep Listening. And she says that, the ears hear, but the brain really listens. So hearing is just a sense that engages. But when we truly deep listen and start dissecting it, we get the brain engaged with it. And it's amazing the different things that we notice. In 1976, she started producing a set of meditations. One of them I love. She suggested take a walk at night and walk so silently that your feet become ears. Or she says, sit in a room and listen to one sound and dial in on that one sound, and then start asking questions about that sound. And what does it remind you of? And what do you think the purpose is behind it? She also started doing sound shots or audio recordings of different places that you are. You can actually go on websites and they have audio recordings of different cities. So you can go into Amsterdam or London, etc. And then there's different sound bites from all around the city. And then you get the flavor and you experience it through a totally different sense. Can you imagine doing your own little sound bites of your own town where you live? That would be so fun to do, to create. Here's another idea as far as mapping or creating something in the area you are. It's actually using the sense of smell. Go on a walk and map out what smells that you smell in different areas and actually write it on a map. There are people out there that actually do smell tours of the large cities, and they send them to different places that epitomize kind of the smell of that locale. So try that on your own. Maybe there's a different smells that you've mapped out, and then take people there and talk about why and what are they remembering from their childhood, what kind of memories come up. People who have gone on these smell tours have said that they've maybe passed by these areas before and they knew there was a scent, but they had never really stopped to figure out where it was coming from and what it was and what the background behind it was. So consider doing your own little smell tour of your area. Okay, here's another idea. Ask the advice of the oldest person you know. And maybe it's related to the industry you're in, knowing that how they experienced it before will be very different as far as technology. But the work ethic and the mindset that they had, think how much you can learn from someone who's put in all these years of becoming successful and maybe something that has the same genre or industry that you're in, or maybe if they're not even in their industry. It's amazing what you can learn from those who are much more senior than we are. In my area, every year we do a grandparent dinner. And it's actually for the teenagers to learn from the grandparents. So the round tables will be full for dinner with half teens and half grandparents. It's amazing what you learn. These people sitting across from you, one of the years that I was there, one was an acrobat off of the wing of an airplane. Another was an undercover agent. One of the women was a physician, when that wasn't really popular for a female to be that. One was a colonel in the army and had a lot to do with the CIA. There is a wealth of knowledge in those who have senior years. There's many countries where the elderly are honored and revered, and rightfully so. So ask about the biggest risk they've ever taken as a job, or what was the technology that changed their life the most, or what questions do they wish someone would ask them? And then what advice would they give you now today, knowing what they know? Notice what you can learn from their experience. This next one is kind of fun. This comes from Joshua Glenn and Cheryl Hayes, and they have a book called Taking Things Serious. And they offer an exercise that when you walk into someone else's space, look around the room and identify the weirdest thing or object that seems to be different from everything else, and then ask about it. They said novelist Lydia Mell had a ridiculous looking plastic dog, and she kept it because it was an unlikely association with a passionate past romance. And a designer had displayed in a case some old packaging. Come to find out, when they asked the story, the package was originally wrapped around a Grammy Award. So there's a lesson in wherever you are to observe the room, and then find the most random item, and then ask, what's the story behind that? Joshua Glenn and Carol Hayes have asked authors and designers to write short little essays about an object in their room that has personal significance to them, but not obvious to anyone else. So the weird thing that's on the mantle or on the desk. Now think about your own space, your own bedroom, your own office. What is an object that wouldn't be obvious to someone else that means something significant to you? And what's the story behind it? Don't have something? Maybe you need to find an item to put in your office. This next one I absolutely love. This comes from Barry Schwartz. He's a psychology professor and the author of the book, A Paradox of Choice. He argues that there is a formula for sustaining attention muscle in students. And after all, we all are students of some sort, right? So this all applies to all of us. So building the attention muscle, said we have a hard time when we're in a lecture or etc., that we get this monkey mind that starts running rampant. Said, but we have a tool to be able to control that. And the tool that they taught had an acronym called SLANT, S-L-A-N-T. And it stands for sit up, lean forward, ask and answer questions. The N is nodding to show engagement. And T was track the speaker. So this way they built participation in their students by getting more comprehension because they were paying attention. And then as the students were paying attention, then the teacher was more engaged. So this is really a handy checklist for all of us, whether we're in a personal conversation or whether we're in a meeting, etc. If we will sit up, lean forward, ask and answer questions, nod to show acknowledgement, and track the speaker, we can start growing that attention muscle and get more out of any conversation or meeting that we're in. Don't you love that? This next one is about listening selflessly. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you're being forced to listen, or you knew that responding, even though you wanted to, was not the best tactic for you or for the relationship? Could be in a meeting where you're trying to relate with someone face to face, or it could even be in a phone conversation. But a New York City advice columnist, Elizabeth Bernstein, published something from her 66-year-old accountant reader who said, you know what? One of the greatest gifts that we could ever give anybody is truly listening without interrupting and without judging. And whenever he finds himself in a place where he needs to be doing more active listening, he reverts back to an ancient technique that he learned during military sniper training. And are you ready for this? And that is the practice of breathing. When he's listening, and in particular when he's feeling defensive, he starts going into deep breaths. Deep breaths dampen that production of the cortisol from the adrenal glands when you're put in stress, and that breathing also stopped time for him. So it helped him dial in and listen and tune into their verbal cues. He says it opens you up emotionally and gives you some space and delays your response time. So it gives that other person some space. So in relationships, this would be crucial, right? So you can use this in any situation. In fact, there's no reason why we would have to act like we're paying attention if we truly were paying attention. I love that. Deep breaths. This next is a great invitation. Are you someone who feels comfortable speaking to strangers? We seem to live in a culture of what sociologists call civil inattention. And that's when we're in a shared space and it's almost like there's a set rule that, oh, you don't talk to other people, kind of stay to ourselves. We don't bother each other, even though we're like shoulder to shoulder waiting in a restaurant. It's almost like we have this unspoken pact. And isn't it interesting that culturally that little pact has thrived when there's so many people around us that we can learn from? Well, Kia Starr wrote a book called When Strangers Meet, and she offers how we can break through that social wall. For example, if someone looks like they're needing directions, instead of darting past them and pretending like you don't even see them, stop and ask if they need help. One of her students utilized this technique when he was walking by an older woman who made a fleeting remark about the trash around the city. So he stopped, he engaged, he discussed it with her, he paid attention to her for a moment, and then he left. And he said, even though this encounter was fleeting, it left a lasting impression on him that he just took a moment to talk to a stranger. So when you feel comfortable engaging, ask a question or give a compliment or throw a comment about the shared space that you're inhabiting. But she does offer some common sense things. She said, don't bother someone who looks like they're in a hurry. Don't mistake a compliment for someone coming on to you. Don't be rude, etc. But be open to asking questions and then be quiet and give people a chance to fill in the silence. But it's interesting the different things that you can learn from people, even if it's just the passing the time. But sometimes it might be a connection that you never would have made had we not had the courage to just engage with a stranger. Okay, I'm absolutely trying this next idea, and that's meet a friend halfway. There's a story told of two artists who lived on opposite sides of the world, and they were collaborating on a project. And one of them said, you know what we really should do? We should meet halfway. And the other one, thinking he was going to be kind of a smart aleck, said, oh, well, let's see. Actually, that's a lake in Czech Republic. Is that what you meant to meet halfway? And to his surprise, the other artist said, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. And so that's what they did. They met halfway and collaborated on this project. Now imagine taking this into your own life, meeting up with a friend halfway. That would be actually pretty fun and adventurous because you might be at a new place or notice something different than you ever have before. Hopefully it's a public space or a restaurant, but there's actually a website called geomidpoint.com that you can put in the latitude and longitude, and you can just find that from your smartphone, right? And you can find out the exact midpoint between you and your friend or a family member, etc. Now think of a good friend that you had, and where would that place be that you would meet in the middle? And perhaps you're not really far away from each other, and you could walk and meet halfway. Anyway, have fun with that. Meeting in the middle. Okay, I've got 3 more for you, and this one I'm absolutely doing. Go on a nature walk with someone else or a group of people without talking. Now, this kind of removes a distraction layer and makes us more acutely aware of our surrounding. And at the end, kind of do a summary of different things that people notice. And if you want to spice it up a little bit, you can have like a prize at the end of the best notice. I think this sounds like a fabulous idea. I don't know, with my friends, it would be difficult for us to be in silence, but I think we could do it for 20 minutes for sure. Imagine trying to do that with your kids or with teens. I think it would be really fun and interesting. Next adventure. Blogger Jason Koski confessed that he loved to mow the lawn. And he found this fascination and satisfaction of being able to mow the lawn and make all the blades the same length and do it in different patterns. So he took this mundane, ordinary thing that we do or have to do and found a way to make it fascinating and have this appreciation for it. He would even notice the difference in the contrast between where he had mowed and the edge where there was the weeds and the long grass. When I was young, my mom, instead of having us just mow the backyard, she would mow long pathways all over in the backyard. And then we had to play tag, or got to play tag, but we couldn't jump from path to path. We had to follow the path. And after we had run all over, probably run a rut in the path, then she would tell us we needed to mow the lawn. And good thing my brother was strong because we had a hand mower. But she took that ordinary, mundane thing and it became an adventure and exciting. And we can take that same fascination into everything we do, whether it's loading the dishwasher or folding the laundry. I actually tried a new way of rolling up socks that a friend has shown me. And I brought out the old retail template fold for all of our t-shirts and had this all lined up perfectly. It looked like a piece of art. I can't tell you what joy and appreciation I had for folding laundry that day when I really did some monotasking instead of multitasking. We literally are drowning in familiarity with different things that we do. But if we just stop for a minute and focus on something, we can bring joy and notice some incredible things in just those tasks that we do day after day. And does it hurt to have a little bit of fun on these things that we have to do? See what you can do to bring some creativity into the mundane. This last one I thought was so incredible. Abravanich and Goldberg are touted for having a program called the Mental Palate Cleanser. And this is where you sit in silence for a certain amount of time before you engage into something that you're going to experience. But one of the things that they did do is they would have a concert. And you had to arrive 30 minutes beforehand and you'd have these buffering headphones on. And at that point, I can imagine that your thoughts are going crazy, but you're not hearing anyone else. And so you're just processing, getting things out of the way. And then when that concert starts, can you imagine the difference that was from someone who maybe just ran in at the last minute and sat down and now is trying to be engaged? A mental palate cleanser. That would be so incredible to try, kind of a mini meditation prior to having to engage. I love what Abranovich said. A significant moment deserves a prelude. Be ready. Oh man, I hope you love some of these ideas. Imagine what you could discover if you had a higher acute ability to notice. And imagine who you would meet or the associations that would be brought into your life if you tried some of these fun exercises and activities that would really take you out of those patterned norms of our everyday life and thinking and reacting and put us in the ability to be able to stretch what would be typical and predictable. We can have a life of checking off the box of things we need to do, but we could also punctuate it with activities and adventures that create new perspectives and literally can start opening up new doors for us because of the new things that we've noticed. Now, I have an invitation for you today. Try at least 2 of these activities I listed. Note what difference they've made to you. And if you'd love to share with us, we would love to hear. You can share at info@nobrainers.com. That's KNOW, nobrainers.com. How did you step into the power and art of noticing? And what difference has it now made in your life? This is going to be fun. Gather some friends to participate and make a game night of it. Or do this privately for yourself, but we are the sum total of our experiences. Let's expand what we're experiencing, and let's expand the creators that we are. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Go out and notice. See you later.